like a PACB
You know
model?
what? I think that by the time the project gets to them, it's gone through the steps for approval. But we will get the full process in place, and it's in place. Let me send it to you so you are aware of exactly how it's occurring. And if any of you hear that there's districts that are not aware of that, because we've been very, very purposeful in getting the information out, please let us know so we can make sure that we support them and help them to make those decisions.
So let me raise the two concerns I have based on not knowing the full answers. One, you might have any given school district put a proposal in that lists many items, and in fact the council or the staff prior to going to council might have problems only with a couple of the items, the projects, and I'd hate to see an entire district's proposal being rejected or delayed because perhaps out of 35 different projects, you had a problem with one or two. So I'd want to at least be reassured that a school district could then get approval for everything but whatever the items were within their proposal. And two, as many of us who spend time up here have seen, sometimes when you have a board or commission that then takes a vote on something, even once you've made your recommendations, any one of those three entities you described might decide, perhaps for political reasons, that they wanted to take a no vote instead of a yes vote. I know you're shocked because you're new to New York, but I am not new to New York. And so a real concern that, you know, I mean, I'll pick on Department of Budget. They don't really like to release money. They like to have the money as opposed to spend the money. So I'd hate to imagine a scene where bond money that the people of New York voted to support spending for important educational technology efforts were then somehow not able to go out the door because districts in good faith put reasonable proposals in, your professional staff approved those proposals in meeting the standards of the Bond Act and attached statutory language, and then somebody else decided it just wasn't the time to spend the money. I would hate to see that happen, so I'd be very interested in the breakdown of the details of how this works.
Well, as you're aware, I'm sure that this board, this group of SUNY, SED, and the Department of Budget was set up under the legislation. And so we can give you an overview of where we are in terms of releasing and what the process is and where anything might be in that pipeline.
And again, I appreciate you looking to help me understand whether the way the legislation is actually drafted, any one of those three actually has veto power. Because I think that would have been an oversight of the legislation. Thank you. There was a question earlier that you did answer about, actually you raised it in your testimony, how we have many models of pre-K. And that you would like to see something done about that. Now, my understanding there's both regulatory change that would be required, but there also may be an issue of different amounts of money for different categories of pre-K. Does your department have a specific proposal about how this can be fixed, and does it require the legislature, or can it be done through SED?
No, it does require the legislature. We do have a specific proposal, and what we are proposing is that we incorporate all of the different programs under one program for pre-K with one set of rules, and that then that be administered and determined and be connected to SED.
And usually when you make changes in multiple programs, you've got winners and losers. So how would you move forward so that you weren't penalizing some category of existing programs?
Well, the programs are all for pre-K, and they're targeting different students, right? And they came in at different times, and the rules were put in place specific at that point in time. And there may, in fact, have been a focus on one part of the state or another. But what we're saying is, as we would, and we would have to work through those things, Senator, but I think it's really important that rather than adding another program, that we take the time to make this correction now and expand our pre-K each year to ultimately get to particularly all of our four-year-olds and the 3-year-olds as we're adding.
I don't disagree with you, for the record. And I'm speaking for my district on the east side of Manhattan. We don't have the room to expand for 3-year-olds at this point. We're still struggling to make sure we have adequate seats for the 4-year-olds in an overcrowded sub-district of New York City. So I'm not a big believer in rushing to 3-year-olds at this time. But I do want to, I guess, emphasize that philosophically, I think merging all into one model makes sense and actually is simpler all around for everybody, providing pre-K throughout the state. But there's a difference between rising all ships by making sure that you're providing adequate funding for everybody, as opposed to turning around and saying, okay, you 4 over there, you have to take a cut because we're evening out. And I think there's real ramifications for that in the real world. So I'm hoping you can view it in that perspective.
Well, we certainly will, and if we're able to move that forward, we really are interested in working through those difficulties. There's no question they were developed at specific times with specific things in mind, and I think it would be an important factor as we try to incorporate them into one program.
Has the Regents taken a position on the East Ramapo issue vis-a-vis the recommendations of that task force and the call for actual legislation to address the problems?
Well, the Regents heard the report from the monitors that were there, Dennis Walcott and the other 2 monitors, and in terms of action taken beyond that, they accepted the report, and we're continuing to work with East Ramapo.
Are you getting anywhere?
I think we're moving forward. It's, as you're well aware, a difficult situation, and it's really a critical thing for us. East Ramapo has some very, very specific needs in terms of funding, and I think that we've got to be able to know that when the funds that you as a group decide would be appropriate, if you do, that we're able to then move them into the district and make sure that there's a very targeted focus on the use of those funds to support what we know are really a severe lack of both resources in terms of facilities and resources in terms of instructional materials and support for teachers.
Thank you. My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman Glick.
So let me just ask you 2 quick questions. One relates to an issue that was raised earlier but in a different context. The state is obligated through the Dignity for All Students law to ensure that students throughout the state, each school building, has a plan and someone who is aware of the need to ensure a safe, respectful environment for all students. This is targeted primarily at ensuring that bullying does not take place, that all teachers are ultimately trained to address instances either in their school, their classrooms, or within the school. It's especially important as you move into junior high, when kids are getting a little bit more rambunctious. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what is happening with that. And I also want to raise to your awareness an effort to, there is a group in New York City that are developing a positive collaborative learning modality, and it is an attempt to change the culture of schools so that it is a positive environment and students are less likely to be disciplined and less likely to be suspended, and more likely to have a variety of school teachers, staff, to whom they can go if they are, in fact, feeling stressed or have certain problems, so that they do not act out. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what the department views as their ability to reach out into school districts to ensure that these efforts and training is actually taking place.
Right. Well, as you pointed out, we did pass legislation here in New York, the Safe Schools Against Violence in Education Act in 2000, and then the Dignity for All Students in 2012. And we further addressed school climate by outlining bullying and harassment and discrimination. And in 2013, the law was amended to include cyberbullying. So we've addressed some of those issues. We've been working with the districts, have put out guidance particularly on specific circumstances that they should be aware of and ways that we believe it's appropriate for them to support all students and have a respectful environment. The whole issue that comes to the fore then is how do we know that that's happening? And we have the regents have requested additional funds to make sure that those statutory obligations are being withheld in our schools. So to enhance oversight through regular monitoring and audits, which at this point in time we are not doing, but I think that's an important thing, and provide support and ensure the accountability of that. One of the things that we've done is we're moving towards a climate survey. I mentioned that earlier, and I think that that will give us more indications of where we are with students. Because the students take that survey and then we would get the data on it and provide for us kind of an overview of what students are thinking about their environment, whether they've been bullied, and do they have someone in their environment they could go to. We also recently were looking at the job descriptions for our guidance counselors and psychologists, and that has come up multiple times that we have to make sure that we have training for them on strategies that can support a respectful environment for all students and to help students. Your comment about students feeling that they had support in their school came out very strongly in the student panels that we had in our work group for boys and men of color. And the students repeatedly talked about the fact that in environments in school, and you had a group of different students, 2 or 3 different panels, in environments in their school, if they had the opportunity to interact with their friends in a way that was positive, and when it wasn't, that there was someone that could help to intervene and almost do peer counseling with them, it made enormous differences in how they interacted with the work they were doing for academics and the work that they were doing in their, many of them had jobs after school and were doing other things. So I think that the role that SED plays is one to both support but also to monitor. And I will tell you, we have not done the kind of monitoring that I think would be a necessary thing.
Do you believe that, to some extent, part of the professional development, that there is an element that could be added to professional development that would include a component that would address the issues of recognizing students who are being isolated? And a lot of this has to do with we've seen a level of violence that comes out of kids who are consistently isolated from their classmates. And their frustration, unfortunately, comes out in a violent attack. Now, New York State has been very fortunate that we have not had some of the situations, although it happens outside of the school, on the street. So I'm wondering if the department is looking at adding to its recommendations for professional development some component that relates to enhancing the ability of teachers to recognize and identify and report to their principals And is there a pathway for people to, either principals or a guidance counselor, students they feel are displaying either isolation or aggression that could be eliminated early on?
Well, I will tell you, I think that it's extremely important for teachers to be aware, and that's one of the things that when you're talking about what makes an effective teacher, someone that really connects with kids, they have relationships with them, and they can tell when there is actions that are occurring in a classroom that are not productive for any child nor for the classroom itself. So I would underscore the importance. I've said it multiple times. It's not only about academics that teachers need to have supports. It's for the things that they face every day in their classrooms, where we can provide strategies and models that we know work for teachers to intervene, and then what do they do to take it to resources that are in that school to help them. And I think the guidance counselors and principals that work every day should be thinking about that. But I want to underscore the importance of having the data about how students are feeling about their environment, because that is extremely eye-opening for whoever looks at it. And in my experience, using that kind of a survey for climate can be a great staff development activity that's used at the school to target not only what a student is saying about the classrooms that they're in, and they're either that they're being verbally attacked, or that they feel insecure at the school, or that they're not being supported, but where does it mainly happen in the school, and what then schools can look at and analyze what they need to do every day to address those issues. Happens to be that a cafeteria is a place where that happens a lot. It does happen in some classrooms, but in a survey you know which ones of the classrooms it happens in, and you also know that there's others where it doesn't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now it's my turn, and it is great to hear that you share so many of the priorities of the legislature, and we've heard from our colleagues today, things like investing more in our children's education and future. As you know, our Senate Majority Conference is determined to finally get rid of the gap elimination adjustment, which, as you know, is a destructive fiscal gimmick that has really taken money away from our children's education for far too long. We need to get rid of it for good. I'm glad to hear that you're focused on improving struggling schools and turning things around. It's great that you're taking action on overhauling the tests, and I know students, teachers, and parents across the state also are very grateful for that. And I'm so happy to hear that you're focused on professional development for teachers, because that is so critical to give them the supports that they need to be the most effective they can be in the classroom. And that ties into something, Senator Kruger brought up about Smart Schools Bond Act, bringing more infrastructure, more technology to our districts. And as you know, the legislature voted to establish an online learning advisory council.
Right.
I authored the bill, and we're very excited about that fact because it brings more opportunities. As you know the southern tier of Western New York, you know Livingston County, which I represent. You also know that I represent 46 school districts. A couple of them are small city school districts that are struggling. We need to help them. But across the board, my districts are rural. And all the districts across the state need to have access to more online learning, because it's very difficult to bring these opportunities otherwise, especially in poor rural areas. But every child can have their world opened up and new opportunities through this. We're excited. Dr. David O'Rourke, as you know, is one of the chairs of the
Yes.
Advisory Council, as is Scott Bishoping,
Yeah.
and they've been putting this together. We're very excited about it, but I have some concerns. I wanted to get your take. First of all, where are we at so that we can get this underway?
Well, on page 11 in the slide presentation, the regents request is for $50 million reimbursed in 17-18, so it would be a reimbursement from funds spent. But let me say, I believe that this is where we can open up the opportunities across the state for all students.
Exactly.
To give you an example, and the committee that you authored, and thank you very much for that. I think it's really exciting that we have from a group of people, many of them in education and others not, saying these are the things that we need to be doing to move our students forward. But providing the opportunities across the board for all of our students. So in those rural communities that you represent, where we don't have enough students perhaps to have a teacher that's teaching AP Physics or AP Calculus, AB, or AP Computer Science, that we can do those things in another format and still allow our students to have access to that high-level programming is an incredible opportunity that we need to take advantage of. There were some additional funds that were spent under Race to the Top for curriculum that can be put online, and we're ready to move forward on that. But we really believe that not only do we have to have, and this gets back to the training again for teachers, we have to have teachers that can be online teachers. And just like anything else, it's a different approach, and so it requires that kind of support and training for teachers so that they can then help our students to be supported and successful with it. The reality is, in any employment that you go into, you are going to have to use technology in some way. You're going to either get your training on technology. People don't do the classroom stand and deliver anymore. They really all kind of individualize it. And I can appreciate that. I mean, we are people that are going into jobs. Our lives are very different. If we have children at home, we do the thing at night, at 11 o'clock at night. If we don't, we might want to do it any time when we can demand that it's there in front of us and we can learn. Our kids are already like that.
Thank you.
So the opportunity of putting that in front of them and having that be across the cities who have not provided some of the high opportunities for kids that they need to, or the rural areas, it's a really incredible opportunity. We want to move forward on it as quickly as possible.
That's fantastic to hear. Now, how many staff members at the department are working on this right now?
Well, the staff members that are working on it have 3 other jobs.
And that actually goes into what my concern is. You know, we studied other states that have successfully done major online learning programs, and one of the things that they've done is that they have dedicated staff and also leadership level staff in order for the program to be successful. And that's just one of the things that I want to raise to you, Commissioner, is right now we don't seem to have that structure in place over at the department, and if there's something that we need to do as a legislature in the state budget, we need to know that so that we can get this really off the ground.
Well, we have proposed in our budget that there be additional funds that would come to state ed, specifically tied to allocations. Let me give you an example. When the allocation came through for struggling schools and persistently struggling schools, and we're moving towards a receivership model, the funding came with $75 million for those persistently struggling schools, and there was no funding at all to administer that program. Now, all of you, I'm sure, have heard and are aware of or may have in your districts schools that are struggling and persistently struggling, and they need help. And often, for us from the state ed department, we need to be there with them in multiple opportunities to provide guidance in how they can connect the community to the school, what they can do, what these great models are that we have in other places in New York, and we can use those as the models. And we didn't receive any funding to do that. So that is just one simple example for the Smart Schools money and the bond. We are processing and doing that work. We didn't receive any funding for that. So you will see that there is a request so that we can become the agency that really supports all of the students in New York State and all of the teachers and administrators in New York State.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to switch now to final cost reports for capital projects. And as you know so well as Commissioner, when capital projects are completed by school districts, the districts are required to file these final cost reports with the department so that the project can be closed out. And there have been times when, due to school district staff turnover, or the department has said that the final cost reports have been lost, or final cost reports have not been submitted, or they've been submitted late. Basically what happens is, as a result, school districts have faced considerable state aid recoveries by the department that wreak havoc on the school district, and I've had a few that I've had to deal with from my Senate district, and one stands out. For example, there was a recovery by the department that was 30% of that school district's entire annual budget. So it's been a problem, and current law requires the department to withhold state aid if a final cost report is not received within 18 months after SED approval. So can you tell us the current status and the number of school districts that the department is aware of that face similar recoveries and the amount of those recoveries?
We'll have to get that data to you.
That would be helpful, and that's what I didn't think that you may have that at your ready today.
Here,
but I wanted to publicly raise it, and also I was hoping that maybe the department could consider some kind of early warning system through state aid management systems so that the information on critical deadlines for filing these cost reports is readily available to the districts, because that's been an issue and it's contributed to the problem. I also just wanted to ask one more thing. There's something came to my attention that's in the executive proposal, and currently State Ed is responsible for developing RFPs and executing grants for pre-K programs. And the executive proposal creates the Empire State Pre-Kindergarten Grant Board to develop and award grants for all pre-K programs going forward. And the board will be comprised of 3 members, one recommended by the executive. All will be appointed by the executive. No officer or employee, member of the school district or education department will be eligible to serve on the board. And the staff of the Office of Children and Family Services will serve as staff for the board. So this proposal would effectively move the RFP development and grant process from State Ed to the Office of Children and Family Services. Am I not correct in that assessment?